Welcome back to another post-series recap here. We're going to be recapping the Red Sox versus Twins series that just wrapped up today. I'm David, and once again joining me is Ian. How are you doing today, Ian?
I'm good. How are you doing, David?
Doing okay. Just get right into the series here. Red Sox had a 4-game set against Minnesota that took up this weekend. They split the series against Minnesota. Red Sox took Red Sox took games 2 and 3 of the series, and the Minnesota Twins took games 1 and 4. Again, still early in the season. Red Sox are only 10 games in, but sitting at 500. You'd like it to be a little bit better, but Ian, we'll just talk about what your general takeaways are for how this series went. I know we just talked before we went live and you said you weren't able to watch too much of this series, but from what you followed, what do you take away from at least how this Red Sox team handled the series against Minnesota?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting just kind of thinking about it, It's just they're kind of enforcing the stereotypes that we initially thought, where it was like, oh, this offense is going to be really good at points, but if it's not and the pitching can't hold up, then the Red Sox might be in trouble. So that's kind of what they kind of ran into this week, especially today's game, which was just rough. But I mean, it's just kind of, we'll just have to see. Like you said, it's still early in the season. We got time to worry about, the pitching issues with the Red Sox. But as of right now, it's not instilling a whole lot of confidence.
Yeah, I said the same thing in the last recap that I did with Brady for the Tigers series, where you can take away certain things from certain games, but you can't really determine what this team is capable of until the end of April. And we're not even close to that yet. There's still a few more series to play until it's the end of April. But, it's just funny to me how the first thing I wrote about my takeaway from this series is the Red Sox took 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. So basically no progress. I mean, you hit on it where Red Sox and their wins this series, they rode on their bats and they had good starting pitching as their wins in games 2 and 3 were the two probably most complete victories we've had up until this point of the season. But then you have games like games 1 and games 4, which we'll get into, where starting pitching just did not go deep. And this team is going to be screwed if they ever have a bullpen game. I would not be surprised if we go the whole year without winning a bullpen game, like in the regular season. I'm not even joking, but like this team is it's got its work cut out for its pitching. And I mean, we already knew that coming in. Like it's just I don't know how to explain it, but it's like something's gonna be so painful, like preparing for it, but when it actually happens, it's even more painful than you could have possibly imagined. That's how I describe watching the Red Sox pitching at times.
Yeah, the Sox pitching is just really inconsistent. Like you got guys like Nate. Well, Nate Eovaldi didn't pitch in this series, but you get what I mean. Guys like him, guys like Houck. Tanner Houck pitched really well. Michael Wacha came out of nowhere and pitched really well. But then you got guys like Rich Hill and Nick Pivetta, who we said they were wild cards to begin the season regardless, but it's they're kind of, at least in this series, it kind of realized the worst fears that we were thinking of. But at the same time, we always have to stress that it's early in the season and we can't take too much stock into it. But at the same time, you'd like to see a little bit more out of the pitching, at least the starting pitching, because we already know the bullpen isn't the greatest. It's not the greatest.
Far from it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far, I guess. But, we can't really rely on our bullpen like other teams can. So we kind of need to get as much as we can out of our starting pitching. And are we asking a lot out of like a 45-year-old Rich Hill and, Nick Pivetta, who, granted last season he was really good. He was pretty good. And this year we kind of need him to step up a little more than he's really ever had to with the Red Sox. So, I guess it's just kind of one of those things where it's just going to be a wild card the whole season. Is the starting pitching going to hold up? Maybe. If not, then who really knows what's going to happen with the Sox in this year?
And I think just the early struggles with the pitching, and I don't want to dwell on last season so much as much fun as that season was. just the struggles we're seeing with the pitching so far to begin this year just makes me appreciate how swell, I guess I'll say, last season went with certain pitching. I mean, you have someone like Nick Pivetta, where statistically his ERA wasn't amazing last year. But me and you, we can just recap like so many of those individual starts, especially against a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, where it seemed like every time we faced Tampa, he took a no hitter or a perfect game into the seventh. Tanner Houck stepped up really well in a ton of certain outings last year. I mean, yeah, I think we definitely can't expect this team and the pitching to overperform like they did last year, because let's call a spade a spade. That Red Sox team last year overperformed as a whole, not just talking about pitching. But there's just going to be some rustiness that we have to work through, some bumps in the road. And I think an underrated thing that is being forgotten about across the whole league is how short spring training was. Whereas this April month is essentially treated also like spring training. I mean, guys are just getting going. The stats aren't as pretty this earlier in the year as they've been as early in the year in prior seasons, but you just have to work through the bumps pretty much. And I think that's just what we're seeing. And again, you can't draw any conclusions on how an 162 game season for a team will go through the first 10 games, but you'd like them to be a little better. So getting into this series, there's a home opening series for the Red Sox here this season at Fenway. I was actually at the first game. Me and my friend texted me. It was Wednesday afternoon, so the game is on Friday. My friend texted me and he's like, "Do you want to go to opening day?" And I'm like, "Sure. Like, let's see if we can work something out." And shout out to RedSox.com. I normally don't like going on their website because I think they kind of rip me off sometimes, but we set bleacher 43, row 4, $200 total. Not bad. I mean,
that's not too bad. Not too bad for opening day. That's not too bad.
So it was a lot of fun going to the game. They had a lot going on. It was home opener, Jackie Robinson Day. Jerry Remy was honored there. They had a nice video tribute for him. It was the 9-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. So they had family members of the impacted victims throughout first pitches. So I always think the Red Sox just do a great job, like with the community and, just taking care and like making sure that, we keep checking on the people who were impacted by that tragedy 9 years ago. So everything about the home opener was great. They always do a great job with those ceremonies. And I don't know if you knew this, but at Fenway, they added a few new things, especially in the bleachers I was sitting in. They now have they have this thing called the Truly Terrace now, where it's behind the bleachers. It's a brand new bar. They have all these new concessions, and they have
I heard they were putting that in. How was that?
So that's where I actually got my food from, me and my friend. It's behind like all the bleachers. So you walk up to get to it. It's a brand new bar, really nice. It's just really strange how everything, and I guess Fenway's the last park to do this, where everything is just contactless now. Like you don't talk to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't talk to someone to give your order anymore. They don't accept cash, but let me just clarify something, because I feel like I have a duty to address the Red Sox public and inform them on things, where everyone heard the news all week that contactless Red Sox don't take any cash. That's not entirely true, because the vendors who go through the sections still take cash. Like, if you are at a game and someone's walking up and down the aisles asking for a hot dog, those guys still take cash. It's just when you go to the concessions, like behind or like underground or like underneath the park, whatever it is, those people only take credit cards or debit or whatever. But I guess we're the last park to do it. I don't know. I don't really have much of an opinion on it, but money does get dirty, and it's easier. Everyone has credit cards and debit cards these days, but I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent on that. But shout out to Fenway Park for costing me and my friend $28 for 3 Fenway Franks and a souvenir soda.
Dang, $28?
I mean, the Red Sox, they're not slick. They know what they were doing. Like, me and my friend had to get
I mean, honestly, though, like, that's kind of what you have to expect if you're going to go to a Sox game.
Well, that's what I was getting at. So we knew that we were going to have to eat there, because we have to be out the door by 10. The game's at 2. Unless we want to starve ourselves for 12 hours, we have to eat at Fenway. So the Red Sox aren't slick. They knew what they were doing with those 2:10 starts. So we're like, we have to eat there. And yeah, so my friend, it was his way of like paying me back for buying the tickets. He spent the $28, but like just Fenway prices. No more comment on that. I don't want to get too angry about it, but just like, what do you expect? You're right. And
I mean, that's pretty much when you go to any major sports thing, really. I mean, I went to Gillette one time, and I think I spent like $10 on a popcorn, like just like a regular size popcorn. Like,
yeah. No, and my friend got like a beer or something. It was like little smaller than this, and it cost $10.50. So there you have that.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what we have to expect if we're going to these games. But you know, you
no,
don't go to the games for the food. You go to the games to see the teams play. So
absolutely. So enough about Fenway as is. They've done a good job with renovations. They added a couple new sections, like it's like the 502 porch where you can have like group outings there. It's named after Ted Williams. Great ballpark.
cool.
Fenway always does a great job at making everyone feel welcome and making sure everyone has a great experience when they go to the games. But talking about this game, I should have known this game. It was going to be a long day when I was there because the first at bat of this game was terrible as Byron Buxton popped it up into left field, and it was in between Xander Bogaerts, Trevor Story, and Alex Verdugo. It was a simple pop-up, and no one called it off, and it dropped in between all of them, and Byron Buxton got a double out of it. So that was on like the fifth or sixth pitch of the game. It was like a Little League pop-up. It would have qualified for the infield fly rule, and Byron Buxton gets 2 bases out of it. Bad start for Pivetta, bad start for the defense. And even worse was on this play, Byron Buxton actually got hurt. And Byron Buxton has a history of injuries. It's been very hard for him throughout his whole career to stay healthy. And I believe he said after the game, or I saw somewhere that on that play, he heard a pop, which is never a good sign because the game of baseball and the MLB is so much better when Byron Buxton plays. Very exciting player. He can hit well. He's so much speed, excellent defender. But the good news is Byron Buxton's only expected to miss a week. There's no structural damage, but that is certainly scary for sure. After that, top second, just another unlucky thing for Boston here as Miguel Snow entered this game with 0 hits on the season. And his first hit of the season came off of Nick Pivetta. He took Pivetta deep into the Green Monster for a 2-run shot. And at that point, the game was 3-0. So I turned to my friend who I went
funny.
to the. Yeah.
What's funny about that? I was at work and the game was on TV at work, and I walked in and I heard Eck on the broadcast is like, "Yeah, Miguel Snow hasn't gotten a hit all season. I wonder if he's ever going to change that." And then literally like 5 seconds later, he takes Pivetta over the Monster. That was kind of funny, but at the same time, I'm like, "Oh, come on, man."
Well, I turned to my friend too, and I mean, my friend had a couple expletives to describe it. He's like, "You got to be bleeping kidding me!" But I turned to him and I'm like, "Do you remember in 2019 when Chris Davis on the Orioles came into Fenway and like he was 0 for whatever and he got like 2 hits or something?" And it's like, of course, everyone has to break their hitless streaks against Boston. Like, why does it have to be us? And it's like everyone in the stands was like, "This guy's doing terrible. He's got a 0 batting average." And then he just shut us all up by taking one of the Monster. It's like, of course, like just unfortunate. So that made it 3-0. And then Luis Arias had an RBI double down the right field line, scored the runner from first. Arias had 2 RBIs in the first 2 innings of this game. And after 2 innings in this game, it was 4-0 Minnesota. And even worse, if there was anything even worse to come from this, Nick Pivetta only won 2 innings in this game. On the home opener, our starting pitcher, Nick Pivetta, only won 2 innings.
Damn. Yeah, that's kind of that's not great.
And I mean, I don't want to say I was waving the white flag in the second inning of the home opener, but you pull your starting pitcher, you go to your bullpen, as we talked about at the top of the show, where it's not the best, far from the best, in my opinion. Yeah, just not ideal for sure. And on the other side, you have a guy like Joe Ryan, who, no disrespect to him, but I never heard of him before this game. Pitched a heck of a game.
He's one of the Twins' top prospects, though. He was like their number 1 prospect for a while.
See, there you go.
He was like one of their best pitchers.
Yeah, so he lived up to the expectations for sure in this game. He went 6 innings, only allowing 1 earned run. And that 1 earned run came from a Alex Verdugo solo home run, in the bottom of the second to make it 4-1. So credit to him. He put in a good outing, something that Nick Pivetta, can't say the same. Top 5, former Yankee and often memed upon player Gary Sanchez hit a 2-run single off Hirokazu Sawamura to make it 6-1. So the game's not looking great at this point. But at the bottom of the 8th of this game, Red Sox woke up a bit. Kike Hernandez hit an RBI double down the left field line to score Jackie Bradley Jr. to make it 6-2. And the next batter was Rafael Devers, and Devers just barely muscled out a 2-run homer down the right field line. It was about 360, 370 feet, something like that. And just like that, the Red Sox score 3 runs in the 8th inning to make it 6-4. And I'll just touch upon this at bat for a little bit here because Rafael Devers, as we'll talk about as this show goes on, just off to a heck of a season for the Red Sox, and we need him to be. He's just building off what he did last year. This pitch that he hit out in this game right here, it was at his ankles, and he somehow muscled it out down the right field line. Now, this sent Fenway into pandemonium. You can actually see me on the replay of that, in Bleacher 43 in my yellow shirt. I got a yellow Rafael Devers City Connect shirt on. So cool stuff there, but somehow he muscled it out. I was saying it was a Mickey Mouse homer. I mean, technically it would have been out in X amount of 30 parks because it went 390 feet or whatever. But that was a weird homer. And that sent Fenway crazy. And we all thought that maybe, just maybe, we could come back in this game.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I did see that home run and I was thinking, I'm like, are the Sox really going to make a comeback off of this? But then I was kind of wondering, I'm like, how many Yankee fans were going to say that was only going to be out at Fenway?
It's just, yeah. And I mean, Red Sox fans can kind of be hypocrites in terms of dissing Yankee Stadium for a ton of Mickey Mouse homers because there's a lot of weird homers down that right field line. And that was one of them. I think, I remember Pedroia years and years ago hit a homer down that right field line right by the pesky pole. And it was 302. Something so stupid, but that was just such a weird homer. But even more impressive to me, as I said, was the fact that Devers muscled that one out when the pitch was at his ankles and inside. And it was crazy. It felt it kind of felt like a roller coaster ride, when you're on a roller coaster waiting for that ball to go out, because it's you have the anticipation of going up and it actually goes out and everyone starts screaming. And it's my friend said to me, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but he said that really shouldn't have been a homer in the sense that the outfielder should have done something to knock it back into the park. I don't know if you feel strongly about that, but just a weird angle homer, and Red Sox certainly will take it.
You know what? I'll just take anything I can get. I'll take the home run. I don't need the outfielder for the Twins having to bat that back into play.
But I'm so glad he didn't.
As we were talking about Rafael Devers earlier, I mean, he is off to a hell of a start. I think he's on a 15, 16 game hitting streak since the end of last season. He has just been on a tear to start the season, and we kind of thought of this in spring training when he went crazy, but he's been going off this entire season, and it's been so much fun to watch.
So that made it 6-4 in the bottom of the 8th, and we headed the top of the 9th with Matt Barnes coming into the game, trying to keep this at a 2-run lead for Minnesota. And unfortunately, he did not do that, as he gave up 2 runs to Minnesota in the top of the 9th to make it 8-4. And the Red Sox would go on to lose this game 8-4. As I said, I was there in attendance, and everything but the game was fun. They had a lot of fun ceremonies, a lot of fun things to check out. But, I kind of took the loss a little too hard. I try not to get angry when I go to sports games and lose. I don't know if you have a tough time with that yourself, but I kind of look at it I spent $200 to see this team lose, and I am 2-8. I am 2-8 at sports games this year, so maybe that had something to do with it. But one loss. The players don't take it hard. They win, they lose, they still go home. But this one was. It's always a gut punch to lose the home opener for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with all the celebrations and all the fanfare that happens before the game, it can get easy to get caught up in that. So, I mean, I don't really know how much success the Red Sox always have on opening day, because it feels like anytime they have an opening day or a big event at Fenway, they kind of fall flat right after. Like
the Celtics whenever they retire someone's jersey, but continue.
All right, I don't know about that one. All right, but I was thinking, like, other, like, big ceremony things that they've had, I think they've lost, like, the games that they've had those big ceremonies. I don't know, one thing that always, like, I'm always remembered of was I don't know if you remember this, but this was all the way back in, like, 2012 when the Red Sox were celebrating their 100th anniversary at Fenway Park, and, like, they played the Yankees, and they had, like, all the special jerseys and everything, and they got smacked, like, 20-5 in that game or something crazy like that, so I always go back to that, and I always think of, like, other games where they have, like, a huge ceremony, and then, like, I think the only one outside of it was, like, the 2013 one when Daniel Nava hit that home run, but I don't know. I guess you can't take it too hard, but at the same time, you would have liked to win that game, and that kinda fell a little bit on the bullpen with Matt Barnes. We kinda had our concerns about Matt Barnes coming into the season, but, you know, that's just kinda reinforced it.
Well, I don't want to blame. I wouldn't blame. I got so many text messages after this game saying like, "Oh, Matt Barnes sucks. Like he's never going to be the same from the first half of last year." And it's like, how about we don't blame Matt Barnes for you know blowing a game, even though we were already down two at that point. How about we pin the blame on this game on Nick Pivetta for only going 2 innings?
Yeah, that wasn't really great, but although I don't know, was Nick Pivetta pitching that bad to where he needed to get pulled after 2 innings?
He was at about 60 pitches after 2 innings, so that had something to factor into it.
Alright, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know if he needed to get pulled after 2 innings, though. Like, I mean, I don't really know your opinion on this, but, like, I feel like he could have at least gone a couple more innings if he needed to, but and, like, it's not like they were down a whole lot. They were down 4 to nothing. I don't know, maybe this is just due to the fact of it was a short spring training and they want to keep everyone fresh after the first month of the season, but I that kinda is kinda perplexing. That's something you kinda gotta I wonder what Alex Cora said after that because, like, it really doesn't make too much sense as to why Pivetta only went 2 innings in that game.
So to answer that question, it's funny that you asked that because Cora said after this game that the reason he pulled them was because Pavetta's mechanics were off in the game. I mean, I don't know.
Alright, I guess so.
I think
I guess so.
I agree with you somewhat where I think yeah, Pavetta could have gone another inning or so based on the pitch count, but I think this just goes back to like analytics these days where it's like no one ever goes 3 times through the lineup anymore. No pitcher ever goes 3 times through the lineup. And I think Pavetta at that point had been getting hit around so much he'd already faced everyone 2 times. But like, I don't know, 2 innings, like give me at least three. Like, anyways,
Yeah,
that
probably could have gone a little more, but whatever.
and another, you can't pin this game on Matt Barnes also when the Red Sox don't get one walk in this game and they strike out 13 times. You're not going to win games when you play like that offensively.
Yep, and that kind of felt like a theme throughout this entire at least for that game and the game today. It kind of felt like the offense was a little too overzealous. They were a little too aggressive when it came to trying to put runs on the board.
So Minnesota spoils the home opener for Boston, and we moved to game two. This game was moving pretty fast. Helk was on the bump for Boston. A lo- of course, the one game I went to in this series, I believe, was the longest. It was 3.5 hours, and I spent 5.5 at the ballpark. You know, pace of play is a big topic in the MLB. We talked about that in another, I think, the Yankees post series recap, but maybe I was just getting a little grumpy or something from having to, come home at like 8 at night after being gone for like 12 hours. But this game flew by. Alex Verdugo got the party started for Boston as for the second straight day, he homered in the bottom of the second inning in this game. It was a 2-run shot off Sonny Gray, made it 2-0 Boston. This was a shot, and they said on the broadcast that this was like David Ortiz territory. And what they meant by this was Verdugo hit this homer near the 420 triangle in deep center, and Ortiz made a living out of that. And you don't expect Verdugo to hit it out there. I mean, he's got some pop to him, but that's a shot at Fenway for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Verdugo's been really, really good to start the year. I mean, at Yankee Stadium, he hit a home run in the second game. I think he hit a home run in the third game too. But I mean, it feels like Verdugo has a different approach to the plate where he's kind of focusing more on getting bat to the ball, and it's working a lot better than it seemed to last year. Because last year he had a great season, But this year feels like he's going to have an even better season just by the way he's starting out.
Yeah, it seems like he's finally molding into what the Red Sox would hope he'd become, because when the Red Sox acquired him in the Mookie Betts trade, you think, okay, at best, hopefully this guy can become just an everyday outfielder, similar to like an Andrew Benintendi, where he's not going to light it up statistically, but he'll be an everyday outfielder for you. He'll be reliable. But Verdugo's just come along every year. In the shortened season in 2020, he did great. Last season, as you said, he did great. And this season, he said the one thing he wanted to work on was just hitting off lefties, because last season against lefties, not the greatest statistically, but I don't know how he's doing right now. And again, it's just 10 games into the year. But another thing also he struggled with is defense. But this year, excellent defensively so far. He's hitting the ball well. I mean, I don't want to say he's the Red Sox franchise player, because that's not true, but he's a integral piece of the puzzle for this new core, in my opinion. And it's good to see how he's playing. So shortly after Verdugo took Sonny Gray deep, for the second straight game, the Minnesota Twins encountered another injury problem as Sonny Gray left the game with an injury, and he has been placed on the 10-day injured list with hamstring tightness stemming from this game. So hope Sonny Gray's all right, and this isn't a bigger problem down the road. And then in the bottom of the third, Xander Bogaerts joined the party as well, as he got a 2-run shot of his own. It was a 2-run shot, and that made the score 4-0 Boston at the time. And there had been so many questions leading up to this game for Bogaerts, where he looks miserable. Is he committed to the Red Sox? What's going to happen with this whole contract situation? Is the hamstring injury from New York still bothering him? For the moment, he just shut everyone up with his first home run of the season.
Yeah, he needed that home run, and he needed it badly. Like, he just needed to see one go out, because, like, it's not like he's been playing bad. It just feels like it feels like he's just having a lot of bad luck to start the year, where, like, it's not like he's having bad at-bats. It's just they're not dropping, or he just happened to, just have a problem. But I think Bogaerts will be fine. I mean, he's been one of the best hitting shortstops in the league for the last at least like 5 years or so. So honestly, I'm not really worried about Xander Bogaerts. I feel like any player can have a slow start to a season, but it really doesn't matter how you start. It kind of matters on how you finish and how you perform, as the season goes along.
And that's an interesting point too, because I don't want to get into too much long-term things, but historically in Bogaerts' career, he tends to run out of gas towards the end of the seasons, where the Red Sox overuse him, and it's just September is not a good month statistically for him heading into a playoff run. So it'll be interesting if they try and change their strategy with Bogaerts and maybe have him only play 130 games versus 150 and just keep him fresh for a potential playoff run. So I hope that's the case, but I agree. Bogaerts, it was only a matter of time until he gets going, and he's one of the best shortstops in the league. He's been underrated for so many years, and it's only up from here. And it was very good to see him hit that homer, and I know it felt good for him. Pitching wise, Tanner Houck had a bounce back outing. Not that he pitched terrible against New York, but he only went 3 1/3 innings in that game. And in this one, Tanner Houck pitched 5 2/3. He went into the 6th, and he pitched a shutout, allowing no runs. This is just what we need from Tanner Houck. We keep talking about this. It's a big conversation in the Red Sox community. Can he take that next step? Can he go past the 5th inning? Will Alex Cora let him go into the batting order or face the batting order for a third time? I mean, we just need innings from our starting pitching, and that's what we got from Tanner Houck.
You know how much I love Tanner Houck. So the fact that he pitched so well.
Only 2 hits, by the way.
I know. He pitched amazing. Like, I mean, there really wasn't much that he could have done better in that game. So it was really nice to see Tanner Houck have a really good start. And, it felt like for the first time in like a while where you can say that, this was Tanner Houck's game. He pitched a hell of a game. And I mean, it, just kind of furthers the fact on how high me and other Red Sox fans are on Tanner Houck.
For sure. And after Houck exited the game, Matt Strahm and Garrett Whitlock helped close it out, as Strahm, I believe, went 1 1/3 innings, and Whitlock went the final 2 1/3. So Red Sox went 4-0. most complete victory of the season up until that point, and they even the series at 1 game apiece. Before we move on to the next game, there's a little bit of a controversy between, not really a controversy, but Eck during the broadcast kind of brought up this thing where I don't even know if he brought this up, but people are wondering why we pitched Garrett Whitlock in this game when it was 4-0. They were thinking maybe we wasted him. Why not wait until today's game till Rich Hill pitches? Because the formula Cora talked about is that you get 5 from Rich Hill, then you get 4 from Garrett Whitlock, and that's how you're going to win games this year. But Cora said that's not necessarily the case earlier this week. And he threw Garrett Whitlock in here after he hadn't pitched in a while, just to pitch the last 2 1/3. And obviously Whitlock, Mr. Shutdown, did his job, but people are wondering, was it really necessary in this game to use Whitlock when the score was 4-0, and maybe you could have turned to another reliever and saved Whitlock for a rainy day? Do you have an opinion on that? Do you not really care? I mean, I don't know. Would it have been? I'm kind of indifferent either way. If you wanted to save him for a more high leverage situation, sure. But at the same time, you don't want to keep Whitlock riding the pine. Like, you want to keep him fresh and pitching. So I'm kind of neutral on it, but I want to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, obviously this isn't, like sustainable, but I kind of want to see him used Whitlock more because Garrett Whitlock is probably the best relief pitcher that we have on this team. So I don't know. The fact it's kind of weird the way we use him. I know we want to make him a starter eventually. It's just it feels weird the way that we're using him. Like we use him like every 4 days and he only pitches 3 or 4 innings, which isn't bad, but if you're in a high leverage situation in any other game, you have to kind of rely on other guys that, they're not as good as Whitlock. You got to rely on guys like Phillips Valdez or Ryan Brazier or Cutter Crawford who, they're not terrible pitchers, but I would much rather I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had Garrett Whitlock for a high leverage situation for late in a game. If he has to only pitch 1 inning, I would much kind of rather that than have him pitch the way that they're doing right now with the 3-4 innings. But I guess if it works, it works. But at the same time, I don't really feel too indifferent. I kind of agree with you, David. I'm kind of indifferent on really when we use him.
So are you saying, just to clarify, that you'd rather him pitch more frequently, but just maybe an inning, an appearance versus
Yeah,
every few?
I would much rather see him in multiple games than have to only use him once because he's so dominant. And I know you don't want people catching on to him, but at this point, it's kind of weird the way we're using him. Either make him a starter or keep him as a 1 to 2 inning reliever. Because there are times in games where we need a high leverage, it's a high leverage situation. We need a pitcher to get us out of the inning. And if Whitlock pitched 4 innings the day before, we can't use him, even though he's our best pitcher. So honestly, I think Cora should just kind of make up his mind, I guess, because it feels like he's kind of going back and forth between the starter and reliever role. I kind of just want to see him pick one. If he's going to be a starter, fine. Have him pitch 4 or 5 innings as a starting pitcher. If he's going to be a closer or a reliever, let him pitch 1 or 2 innings. But I just want him to have a real role because I feel like he's way too valuable to the Sox as a bullpen arm to only have him pitch 1 game in a 4-game series.
So with the series tied up at 1 game apiece, we moved to Game 3, which was yesterday. Shout out to the Red Sox and the Twins for having this game, fly by, because we got to watch most of this game before the Celtics playoff game started. I believe it was in the 7th inning. Yeah, so it was in the 7th inning before the Celtics playoff game started. So got to see most of it, watch the highlights back to catch the end of it. But this was another doozy. Red Sox took care of business. Not really too much happened until the later innings, but nice play in the 5th inning from Rafael Devers, running into center field to make a nice over-the-shoulder grab. Devers was in the shift, and he was about 100 feet out in the outfield, and he made an over-the-shoulder grab. Probably should have been Kike's ball, but it's so weird that we're consistently praising Rafi Devers' defense because we forgot to talk about this earlier, but he's having a heck of a start to the season, not only at the plate, which we expect, but defensively, he's made a ton of great plays.
Yeah, and that was kind of always the issue with Devers and why maybe he wasn't thought of as like the best third baseman in baseball was because, granted, he was never really the best defensively, which, I mean, I guess you can blame him at the same time as you really can't at times, but you know, it's just great to see Rafael Devers put in the work, and the fact that we get to see him play pretty solid defense at third base, which was sorely needed for the Red Sox, who over the last couple of years haven't been the greatest defensive team of all time. But so I'm pretty happy with the way that Rafael Devers kind of put in the work, and now he's become a pretty solid to serviceable defender at third base now.
It's kind of crazy how just a year ago we were talking about maybe swapping Dahlbeck and Devers. So Devers moves to first and Dahlbeck goes to third. And now it's like, don't move my Raffy. He's great defensively at third. Like he's sticking there.
Keep him.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. So, like I said earlier, it was a pitching battle until the bottom of the sixth between Michael Wacha and Ober of the Twins. Wacha had 5 shutout innings. Ober went 6 innings and had 0 earned runs. Miguel Snow had a fatal error in the bottom of the sixth as Devers hit a ball right at him. Should have been caught by Snow at first, but it went off his glove, allowing Devers to reach. Then Xander Bogaerts, right after Devers, hit a double off the Green Monsters, hit up Devers at third, Bogaerts at second, and back-to-back sacrifice flies by JD Martinez and Alex Verdugo made it 2-0 Red Sox after 6 innings. Top 7, Ryan Brazier comes in out of the pen. He got off to a shaky start, first and third with no outs. He led up a sac fly to Trevor Larnach, which made it 2-1. And you think, okay, maybe Brazier can get out of this, only letting up 1 run. But then pandemonium happened as Brazier allowed the bases to get loaded. But it comes full circle as with 2 outs, Brazier gets a huge strikeout on Garlick of the Twins to end the inning. So Brazier, roller coaster ride. It kind of reminds me of the Adam Ottavino experience last year, where a lot of those appearances from him were a roller coaster ride. I've always liked Brazier. I'm a big Brazier guy. I know he's a polarizing figure to some here in the Red Sox community, but I don't want to keep dwelling on last year, but let's not forget how dominant he was when he came back in September last season, including that playoff run. And this is just the reality, like we talked about, that we're going to have to accept, where Brazier is going to have to, he's going to be a big part of the bullpen this year because, I mean, he's one of what options do we have?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie to you. After 2018, I was not really high on Ryan Brazier because the next season he pitched horribly in 2019, and then 2020, I don't even really remember that much, but I can't really remember any notable outings that he had then. And like you said, last year he came back and he pitched pretty well, but I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like you never really know what you're going to get out of Brazier. And I don't know, maybe we think that Cora relies on him too much, but at the same time, like you said, who else are we going to rely on when we only have Garrett Whitlock for 1 game? So honestly, I would much rather us pitch Garrett Whitlock more, but if it happens, let's just hope we get as much as we can out of Brazier.
And I keep forgetting, too, that Josh Taylor is due back in a little bit. He's on the IL right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He pitched in Worcester the other day. I think he, started the game, and he pitched pretty solidly. So,
yeah, when he comes back, we're hoping we can pick up right where he left off last year. Where I think he went 27 straight appearances without allowing a run. So hopefully he can rekindle that fire. But not all hope is lost in the Boston bullpen is what we're getting at once we get Josh Taylor back. We head to the bottom of the 8th in this game, though, as the Red Sox are holding on to a narrow lead at 2-1. But it would be a narrow lead, not for much longer, as the Red Sox had a 6-run 8th inning. One of the highlights of that inning for me was a 2-run single by Trevor Story, made it 6-1. And as I said, final score is 8-1. So the Red Sox take 2 in a row to go up in the series 2-1. But just going back to talk about Trevor Story for a second, it's not been the most ideal start for him, for sure, as he signed late, left camp to go be with his wife for the birth of his first child, got food poisoning, and he's just been in and out of the lineup working on his swing. But, we just need these highlights from him in this series. And I forgot to touch upon something he did in the game I was at, but he made a nice diving catch to end the first inning in the shift at second. So, we value his defense for sure. And it's just going to come offensively. But, he's another guy we definitely need to get going. And when he can get going, he just has so much potential where not only can he hit for average, hit for power, but he also does something that the Red Sox, I don't know if they'll use this capability in him, but he can steal bases for us too. So we'll definitely take the speed.
Definitely, definitely. I'm pretty satisfied with the way that Trevor Story's been playing. There's a lot of unforeseen circumstances that have kind of hindered him being there every day right now. But, as of right now, I'm happy with the way he's been on defense. This is something the Red Sox have sorely needed
Yeah,
at second
Celtics and
base.
defense, yeah.
You know what? Yeah, the Celtics are defense. But anyway, the thing the Red Sox needed on defense was a reliable second baseman. Ever since Pedroia kind of went down and ended up sadly retiring, it was kind of a revolving door at second base. It was either Brock Holt or Christian Arroyo or just a bunch of random guys who, granted, they weren't bad, but you can never replace the production that Pedroia was going to provide to you on defense. But the fact that Trevor Story's there, the fact that he's switched over to second base really well from being a shortstop pretty much his entire career. So I'm pretty happy with the way he is on defense. And like you said, the offense is going to come. He only had 11 at bats in spring training. It's going to take him some time this season to get going, but I can probably say by next season, Trevor Story is going to be what kind of we expected Trevor Story was going to be for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Ian Kenzler at second base. That was a fun ride.
Oh my God. You know what the funny thing about Ian Kenzler is he was so good in Texas for the longest time. And then he came to the Red Sox in 2018. I don't even think he got a hit. I think he got one hit his entire time he was with the Red Sox. And I always liked Ian Kenzler, but I don't know, it was just weird. He couldn't he never did anything. It was so weird.
It's kind of unfortunate because what he's going to be most remembered for, at least when he was with the Red Sox, was that throwing error on the final play of the game against the Dodgers, where we could have ended that game in that crazy extra innings game and gone up 3-0 at the time. But he took whoever it was, Mitch Moreland, or I forget who it was, off the bag, and the series continued. But Ian Kenzler, I don't even know why we're talking about him, but why not? Just for a couple seconds. Like you said, he was great in Texas. Solid in Detroit, too. That was a blockbuster trade when they traded him for Prince Fielder. That was a crazy trade back in the day. And then, Dave Dombrowski was trying to make this team just so much better in 18 and get someone who hopefully could do something for the Red Sox and Kenzler. Didn't pan out, but hey, second baseman, hopefully, getting back to the original point, hopefully Story can be a staple in the infield for a while. And he will be for at least 3 years. But getting back to this, Red Sox take 2 in a row. We're going to talk about the game that just happened today, the early Marathon Monday game here in Boston at 11:10 in the morning. It's over by 2:30, 2:40 a day. It's pretty nice. I don't mind it once a year, Rich Hill, Boston guy, was on the mound today. Fun little fact, this was the first time in Red Sox history where a Boston-born pitcher had pitched for the team on Marathon Monday. I thought that was pretty cool. What wasn't really cool was Rich Hill's pitching during the game. 4 2/3 innings pitched, giving up 4 earned runs, 2 homers. Garlick homered top of the first, Polanco homered top of the third. And this isn't a knock on Rich Hill, and I don't want to hate on Rich Hill too much, or really at all, because he is going through a lot right now. He just lost his dad late last week, so I don't want to. What we're not gonna do here on this episode is knock on anyone for their performances, but just the homers in general are hurting the Red Sox pitching. It's just been an early theme in the season where the home run ball is really just been the kryptonite for the Sox, and it just happened again here today. And we'll just cover the rest of the game quickly, but before we go any further, it's just really tough for this team and for any team to consistently keep digging themselves in holes and trying to climb out of them later in the game. And that's what the Red Sox have been doing a lot early in the season, and it's tough to win ball games like that.
Yeah, it's kind of been weird because last season it felt like they limited the home run ball pretty well. You remember Nathan Eovaldi all last season, he didn't even allow a home run for the first month and a half of the season. And then opening day he allowed 2. So I think it just kind of happens And, it's something that you can control, but at the same time, it's just a lot of bad luck at this point, and hopefully it doesn't become a consistent theme throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, and you touched upon it at the beginning of the show too, where we can't depend too much on a 42-year-old Rich Hill at the back of the rotation. The hope is that he can give us a respectable ERA, maybe like a sub-4 ERA, like he's done before in years past, and just eat up innings for us at the back end of the rotation. If he can do that, we're just going to be fine. But like you said, and like we've been saying, you can't take stock out of two starting appearances in a whole season when you're probably going to rack up 25 to 30. But like I said, Garlic homered, Polanco homered, and Vasquez had the only two RBIs, or two of the three RBIs today for Boston. Vasquez had his first home run of the season, bottom of the seventh inning today, into the Green Monster seats. We'll talk more about bad pitching, where Cutter Crawford was not good out of the pen today. This stat line was abysmal, Ian, as he pitched 1 2/3, 2 hits, 4 earned runs, and 5 walks.
Yeah. I mean, I defended Cutter Crawford in the past, but it kind of happens. He's still a rookie. I guess you kind of got to give him time, but I don't think Cora should have had him out there for a second inning. I think the one inning that he pitched was pretty solid. He had a 1-2-3 inning when he first was out there, so I know we want to get as much as we can out of our relief pitchers, but at the same time, I don't think it was smart of him to go out there for a second inning, in my opinion. But that's hindsight.
Yeah, it's interesting where it seemed like last year and in years past, Cora's philosophy was always kind of like just get an inning out of your relievers and then move on to the next one, where he's trying to stretch these guys out this year, and they have the potential to. Like, Hansel Robles has like a 4-out save. Cutter Crawford's gone like 1 to 2 innings in multiple appearances so far to start the year. Garrett Whitlock, of course, being the most infamous of this, where we're pitching him, 3 to 4 innings per appearance. But I don't know. I mean, I don't have an opinion on it either, but it just seems like Cora's philosophy is kind of shifting too when it comes to the bullpen, where he's just maybe realizing, all right, the names in this bullpen are not the household names. Let me just kind of squeeze out as much as I can out of each person just so I can save arms for the next day and the next day.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, it could also end in situations like we saw today where Cutter Crawford ends up walking 5 people. Granted, one of them was an intentional walk, but it's on the stat line regardless. 4 walks doesn't really make it any better, but I mean, it was just kind of a rough outing from the bullpen today after Rich Hill. After Rich Hill pitched, they kind of went downhill a little bit with the pitching.
Yep. So not really too much else to say about the game today. Just another off day for the Sox. Twins win the series finale earlier today, 8-3, and they split the series with the Boston Red Sox at 2 games apiece. Before we start wrapping this show up, let's just go over our standout players for each side. I'll go first. For the Red Sox, thought Alex Verdugo had a heck of a series. He had a homer in the first couple games of the series, and he had at least 1 hit in all 4 games. And as we talked about earlier with Verdugo, he's just becoming more and more of a complete player, and we're just hoping for big things from him for this season. Tanner Houck's another guy who I'll say was a great player for the Red Sox. Could have went either way with Houck or Waka, the starters for games 2 and 3, but Houck went into the 6th and pitched the shutout, so he got the nod for me. For the Twins, I went Joe Ryan. As you said, top Twins pitching prospects. He pitched 6 great innings and the home opener for Boston in game 1 of the series, only allowing 1 run. Then you look at a guy like Luis Arias for the Twins, who had 2 RBIs in the first 2 innings of the home opener, and I believe in the second game he also had a multi-hit game. So those are my players of the series for each side. I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, my standout guys for the Red Sox would probably have to be, of course, Rafael Devers. He's been on a tear. He had another really great series in the series, and at this point, it doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon. Like you said, you could have gone with Houck or Waka. I was going to go with Waka because it wasn't really something we expected. We didn't talk down on Waka's ability, but at the same time, we were talking about how he wasn't really the pitcher that he used to be back when he was with the Cardinals all those years ago. But he pitched a really great game, and it was a game that the Red Sox kind of really needed from a starting pitcher, just kind of for confidence kind of building at this point. We need our starters to go as long as we can, and the fact that Michael Wacha gave us like 5 2/3 was really big for them. For the Twins, it always felt like I was hearing Trevor Larnach's name a lot throughout this entire series. I don't know why, but it always felt like he was either driving in runs or he was hitting a home run. So shout out to him. And also Johan Duran for the Twins out of the bullpen. That guy is insane. His pitching is nuts.
I'm glad you brought him up. I forgot to bring him up because seeing that in person, I don't follow like a ton about the teams outside of Boston sports, but I didn't know much about this guy. He was throwing 102 and his splitter was like 99. Ridiculous.
Yeah, Johan Duran's another one of the Twins' top prospects pitching wise, but I mean, damn, like he was impressive. So shout out to Johan Duran too.
All right, so after this series against the Twins, the Red Sox are sitting at 500 after 10 games at 5-5. They will start a new series against the Toronto Blue Jays, a 3-game set tomorrow. That's going to wrap it up for us in this post-series recap. Ian, thank you for joining me. We'll be right back at it at the end of the Blue Jays series. If you like this video, like this video, hit the thumbs up. Sure, I butchered that. Great. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. Subscribe to our Instagram at BSML REDSOX and our other Instagram page, our main Instagram page at Boston Sports Media Live. And once again, we'll talk to you guys after the Toronto Blue Jays versus Red Sox series. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Take care.